Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and in this video we are going to discuss a drug that has come up in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is not my usual area of focus. Jeffrey Epstein has not been my focus at all in the work that I do, although I just did an article about him and his relationship with biodefense, with the biodefense and biosecurity and public health and NGOs like Bill Gates. But it seems, so I have a lot of expertise and knowledge about this certain drug that is called scopolamine. Not because I use it on anybody or anything like that, but because I researched it for years before I started getting into biological warfare. I've been growing these plants. Like scopolamine is a drug that comes from these certain plants. They're called angel's trumpets or brugmansia. Angel's trumpets, and they're from they're from like Ecuador and Central America, but actually they're all over the world. But they're very common in like Colombia. Very beautiful plants. Like the flowers are absolutely gorgeous. I'll put some flowers on the screen and show people some of my plants. But they come from this. It's not just in those. It's also in a similar relative called the datura, and belladonna, known as deadly nightshade, henbane, mandrake. And there are some other ones, but the main source of scopolamine is that brugmansia. And in Colombia, they produce that drug, and they drug people, like criminals use it. So it can be used as a date rape drug. It could be used to rob people. It can be used it can even be used to kill someone. But it can be used for very nefarious things. But at the same time, it can also, it's a versatile drug. It has so many uses. Like in small doses, it's actually medicinal. They use scopolamine for motion sickness. You can buy scopolamine patches, certain places. You put them behind your ear, and they treat motion sickness. I got really interested in the plants and their history because the plants have such a rich and deep history, going back all the way to the beginning of time. I mean, in ancient Sumer, the clay tablets talk about belladonna being used to treat depression caused by demons. And it's also been used as a chemical warfare agent, even like in primitive times. Or even in ancient times, like what they would do is they would make an extract of the plant and spike either like wine or whatever, spike the drinks of their enemies, and they would fall into a stupor, and they would be easily overtaken. I think it was the Parthian Wars. They did that, something like that. But I read about it, and I started researching the history, and I actually had a website about these plants. And for me, it was like a spiritual thing. I was more interested in the shamanism aspects of these plants because they've been used in shamanism and magic and witchcraft and stuff, and I was just really interested in the shamanistic uses of them. And so they're like a potent hallucinogen when taken in large doses, but it's often described as terrifying. It's not always, it varies, because there's a lot of people that have tried taking it, like teenagers that have taken it saying, oh, we can trip on this, and they take it and they get so messed up. And there's this website called Erowid, for like, it's a site about psychoactive chemicals, plants and stuff, and drugs. And there's a section where people are able to tell of their experiences on the drug, like the trip reports, they're called. And I started just reading through it, and it just some of the stuff people experience is just absolutely crazy. Like, people would see people, like, all sorts of things would happen. But in this article, in this video, I wanted to talk about the drug and how it was used by probably used by Jeffrey Epstein to drug many of his victims. I'm doing this so that the Epstein victims may come across it and realize that they may have been drugged, because I've heard a lot of some of these victims saying that they can't remember certain periods of times. They have memory loss, missing time, and that's exactly what you would expect with a drug like scopolamine. And I know that he was doing far more nefarious things and drugging these women, and from what my friend Juliet Bryant says, that they were taking her eggs, right, for like clandestine black projects, the government experiments, and things of that nature. Nefarious things. I don't know what they were doing, but nefarious things. Like, she says she woke up on a table one time, like, has a memory of that, and the way she described it, it sounds a lot like she was drugged with scopolamine. It really sounds like she was drugged with scopolamine. And there are other victims who have actually, because when I was working on that book, I had been in contact with the author. That book, Blue Butterfly, which is not going to be published, but I had told her about scopolamine, and she was in contact with another victim, and the victim said, yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. Because I said, ask her if she had a dry mouth. Ask her if she remembers having a dry mouth, because that's one of the side effects of scopolamine. And when you're under it, your perception and changes, and you can see, like, there'll be hallucinations. Like, you'll be in a room, but it will look totally different than how it really looks. And so it's very, like, this is how powerful this drug is, okay? Like, people would take it, they'd be under the influence of it, and then they'd say, like, oh, all my friends came over. All my friends came over, and we started having a party. It was awesome. And then, like, all of a sudden just vanish, and they wouldn't be there anymore. Like, that's how powerful that drug is. Like, you can't distinguish real from hallucination when you're under that drug. And in reality, no one was ever at the house or whatever, and they were hallucinating. That's kind of like, so it's a very, very powerful drug, and it's definitely, it's something that the intelligence agencies would definitely have. And that's what I'm doing here, is I'm republishing an old article that I published in 2016, actually, right? I published it in 2016, and it was called Scopolamine and Mind Control, Intelligence Agencies and the Search for an All-Subversive Agent. And I talked about how in the MK Ultra program, they definitely made a lot of progress with it, even though they told the public that they didn't, but they did. They definitely did. And it's actually used as a truth serum, okay? It's actually used as a truth serum. That was the truth serum that they found. Everybody was focused on LSD or marijuana, but it was scopolamine. And I have evidence of this. So WikiLeaks had WikiLeaks had released some of this information, where there's a guy who worked in the Army. He was Dr. Larry Fornes of the American Military University, and it was a lecture called Terror, Interrogation, and Intelligence, right? And I'll even read it to you. He says, fallacy number 4. These things called truth serums don't really work. And he says they do work to varying degrees of success. There are 3 primary truth serums. Here they are. Scopolamine. Scopolamine hydrobromide. First word pronounced scopolamine. Also known by another name, hyoscine. Hyoscine hydrobromide. It is colorless, odorless, and tasteless. Its clinical uses are primarily as a sedative and applied locally, directly as a mydriatic, which causes the pupil of the eye to dilate. And then you get the vision problems and you get light sensitivity. When used as a sedative, the primary uses are to combat vertigo and motion sickness. When used with morphine and phenobarbital to a woman in labor, it produces a twilight sleep. It is also used as a premedication preliminary to surgery anesthesia. Since scopolamine completely blocks the formation of memories, unlike most date rape drugs used in the United States and elsewhere, it is usually impossible for the victims to ever identify their aggressors or interrogators if you were a prisoner. To use scopolamine most effectively, to get a prisoner to tell you what he or she knows, the key is where you inject it and in what amounts. Normally, it is introduced to the body by a transdermal patch or intravenously in the arm. However, if you inject it into the spine, amount classified, it causes absolutely incredible pain accompanied by violent convulsions and seizures. If injected into the spine in the appropriate amount, more than 95% of all prisoners will tell the truth, not something fabricated to stop the pain, within 24 hours. Source classified. And then he talks about the other ones, but he says, in terms of training individuals to resist the 3 aforementioned truth serums, it is easiest to train someone to resist the sodium amythol, followed by sodium pentothal. There is no known training that will allow anyone to resist scopolamine when injected into the spine in the correct amount. What you don't want to do is stack scopolamine with sodium pentothal and sodium amythol. Stacking means adding one drug on top of another before the previous drug has washed out of the system. You stack on somebody, you'll kill them. And there's corroboration that they were actually using it by a guy named David Hicks, who was an Australian journalist, I believe, and he was held at Guantanamo Bay. I think they might have thought he had ties to terrorism or something, but he was held there as a prisoner, right? And it says that they gave him scopolamine injections, like he was injected with scopolamine, and they were telling him that it was to prevent motion sickness, but that you would never inject somebody with scopolamine for the motion sickness when you have the patches. Like that would be very unusual to give it by injection, right? So they were using it at Guantanamo Bay, okay? And this was during the time that Epstein was thriving in his nefarious activities, all right? And so basically I'm republishing this because of my expertise in it. It's what you call an anticholinergic. It's an anticholinergic, but it's a very powerful drug. If you take it in large amounts, you'll have like crazy hallucinations. Now here's the other thing. I don't think he was giving it to them every time. Like I don't think it was something that was given every time. I think he was using it in specific occasions. And a lot of it having to do with like what Juliet said and waking up on a table at the Zorro Ranch. Down at that Zorro Ranch, he probably gave her scopolamine. That's why, because when you're drugged with scopolamine, you don't even realize it's coming on, right? And then all of a sudden you just black out. And I found in these emails the recent Epstein emails. There was an email with a victim impact statement, right? It says the victim impact statement of Dr. Joseph Manzaro. It says, it was about 5:30 p.m. on December 26, 2014. When I arrived at 424 Valley Forge Road in West Palm Beach, I unlocked my door, and when I turned the handle on my door, I got something all over my hands that resembled Vaseline. I said to myself, ew, that's disgusting. I rubbed my fingers together and my hands as I went in to wash my hands to see what the heck this stuff was. The next thing I remember, I was waking up in the back seat of a car being driven somewhere. It was Eric Mejias driving and Bonnie Rivera in the passenger seat. I said, hey guys, what's going on? Where are we going? What am I doing here? Why are we driving anywhere? I'm supposed to be at home right now. Then I said, oh wow, I'm really sleepy. I just need to put my head back in a bit, okay? Next thing I remember, I was waking up again and hearing Bonnie Rivera telling Eric Mejias that I was waking up. He said, he's waking up because what should I do? Eric Mejias then told him not to worry. Just give it a minute. He'll fall back to sleep. I gave him a lot of scopolamine. He must have given me a lot of, and then the guy says, he must have given me a lot because I am practically immune to that stuff. As a child, I had to take it quite a bit to go deep sea fishing with my dad on the weekends, which I loved. I just hated being seasick and developed quite a large tolerance to scopolamine. I kept that to myself, though. So this was an email. In the email, it seemed like this guy had some dealings with Jeffrey Epstein as well. Okay? And then, so this stuff can actually, you can be drugged through the skin. Like it can seep, like he was saying with the Vaseline. So like back in the day, you hear the witches on broomsticks, right? They used to make a paste of it and put it on their body, and they would, and they would do like astral flight or whatever. That was like for witchcraft, for the witches, and that's the whole idea behind the witch on the broomstick. They would, yeah. So, but this stuff, it can seep into your skin. So if he put it in like a lotion, now what's his name, Diddy, when he had all that baby oil. They said there was nothing in it, but it could have very well been drugged with scopolamine, and they probably didn't want people knowing about it because it's a classified kind of thing where they know they use it for so many things and they don't want people talking about it. But Jeffrey Epstein got another email. Someone sent him the article about scopolamine being used to drug people from this Vice outlet. Yeah, everybody knows Vice, right? Well, Vice did a documentary on it called The Devil's Breath. The Devil's Breath, the most dangerous drug in the world. Devil's Breath, chemical from Colombia, can block free will, wipe memory, and even kill. Scopolamine often blown into the faces of victims and added to drinks. Within minutes, victims are like zombies, coherent but with no free will. Some victims report emptying bank accounts to robbers or helping them pillage their own house. It's made from the borrachero tree, which is the brugmansia, which is common in Colombia, right? And Jeffrey Epstein obviously knew all about it, and from what I can tell from some of the victims, it sounds definitely like he used that. Now here's the thing: when you're given scopolamine over a long time or a significant number of times, it can actually cause problems for you that last and linger on. Like there's been people that have taken that stuff and never been the same after. Like I remember I was talking to this girl who said that she had taken it with 3 boys, taken the datura seeds, and they didn't realize how dangerous it was, and one of them ended up in they all ended up in the hospital. She said one of them was never the same afterwards. Because it can really mess you up. And You can have psychiatric problems. You can have memory loss. You could be very absent-minded, forgetful. Um, and it can also cause some other things. I think like kidney stones or something. But the memory loss thing is huge. And I know I've heard that a lot of the survivors have talked about not being able to remember stuff and stuff, and that would indicate that this drug was being used. So if there's any survivors out there that are watching this, you should really look into scopolamine, and that is probably what happened to you if you have memory loss, you don't remember. And I have this article here that tells you all about it. It shows how the intelligence agencies were using it, and I know Juliet said that Epstein said that he was from the CIA. He worked with the CIA. He worked for the CIA. Well, that was right around the time they were using it at Guantanamo Bay. Right around that time. All right, and so MK Ultra. This drug was huge. This was their thing. An agent that could create the highest suggestibility, having a subject without question act in a way contrary to his or her individual will, against their own safety, and preferably hidden in a state of amnesia upon awakening. And it's an incapacitating agent, an agent that could completely incapacitate one from performing duties or daily activities from anywhere from hours to days. It lasts a long time. And it's an agent that could create a state where the ability to lie is notwithstanding and the known information is withdrawn accurately without much effort. So they were looking for drugs like this, and this was the perfect drug for all seasons for nefarious activities. I know a lot about it because I had been researching it for years, and there's actually this one guy. I'll show you here. There's actually this one guy that I met named James Ketchum. You can read about him in the news. He has like these articles where he was giving volunteers lots of LSD. He was testing drugs for the Army at Edgewood. And he wrote this book, Chemical Warfare, Secrets Almost Forgotten. He actually sent me this little letter thing. Because I was talking to him, because I just wanted to talk to him because he made a synthetic version of it called BZ, 3-quinaclonidil benzoate. And it's called BZ, and it does this, it puts people into a stupor. I also know somebody named Matthew Pauly who says he was given it, he kind of fell into this, the government harassing him over something. He wrote a book about it called The Murder of Time. I forget what the subtitle was, but he was talking about how he had an abuser that was giving him scopolamine as well, and I was actually advising him a lot. I taught him a lot about the drug, and he wrote that book. But this guy wrote this book, and he talked a lot about it, the BZ, how they could make a fog. So it can actually, there's different ways it could be done. You can make a fog, and they could get you like that, or they could put it in that like Vaseline. They could put it in something that is applied to the skin, lotion, Vaseline, whatever. Like that guy was talking about when he tried to open his door and there was this Vaseline stuff everywhere. That's another way that they could get you. And so there's all sorts of different ways to drug people with it. And there's the powder where they can blow it. A lot of the criminals in Colombia use it like that. They blow the powder in somebody's face, and then within seconds, they're in a stupor. So yeah, I just thought I would put this out and let people know about this. If anybody wants to reach out to me to know more about this drug, feel free. I can tell you all you want to know about this drug because I studied it for years. So that's it, and I have my article. I'll leave the link in the description box. And with that said, everybody, take care of yourself, be yourself, build yourself, and I will see you on the other side.